No doubt you will have seen that Cricket Australia has decided to pull out of a one-day international series against Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan, as we know, is now under the rule of the Taliban. And because of a number of repugnant decisions made by these terrorists, including to ban sport and university education for women, Cricket Australia floated the idea of withdrawing with the federal government, and they seemingly gave it the tick of approval. Now, we as a country should do everything we can to stand up for the rights of women and anyone else who is subjugated around the world. And in some circumstances, that could come in the form of a boycott. Sir Donald Bradman famously declared in the early 70s, while he was chairman of the then Australian Cricket Board, that there would be no further tours involving South Africa. Now, South Africa was, of course, an apartheid nation at the time, and it chose its cricket teams on the basis of race. Australian cricketers didn't want their opponents to be chosen on the basis of race, so they took a principled stand. The Whitlam government banned sporting tours involving South Africa soon after, and that was maintained by both the Fraser and Hawke governments. The ICC then imposed a moratorium on cricket tours of South Africa in 1970, and plenty of other world sports were banned from going there at the same time. But I think this case with Afghanistan is different, and I don't take that view lightly. Afghanistan became a full member of the ICC in 2017. It is the only full member nation of the ICC, and there are only 12 of them, to not have a women's team. In fact, they didn't have a women's team at all when they became a full member. And that was, of course, before the Taliban took over. Now, the ICC clearly didn't take issue with that at the time, and nor did we. It's arguably worse that the Afghanistan Cricket Board could have established a female team at that time, but they chose not to. They tried in earnest in 2020 to get one going, but the Taliban obviously later put a stop to that. There has never been an organised game of women's cricket in Afghanistan. Australia played Afghanistan in the ODI World Cup in 2015 when there was no women's team and we said nothing. And again in 2019, still no women's team, still no complaints. Just a couple of months ago in November, long after the Taliban took Afghanistan and a year after they said they would ban women from playing sport, we hosted the Afghan cricket team on Australian soil for the T20 World Cup. We played against them at Adelaide Oval, and yet no one said anything about that. So it seems a little odd that we would now decide we don't want to play against them. The series was to be played in the United Arab Emirates, not Afghanistan proper, and I believe the decision to hold the series would have also been made after the Taliban took over. And don't forget that last year we were playing in the Soccer World Cup in Qatar, where they punish gay people with death and treat foreign workers like dispensable resources. The Socceroos put out a video condemning the human rights abuses over there, but it didn't stop them going. All we're really doing is depriving the Afghani people of a much-needed outlet to distract themselves from the pain of living under the regime of the Taliban and sidelining a group of people who can be effective voices against the terrorists who rule their country. Star leg spinner Rashid Khan, who is arguably the best-known Afghani cricketer worldwide, has spoken out against the ban on women's education, and a number of his teammates did the same. When the Taliban began taking back Afghanistan in 2021, Rashid was playing cricket in an English competition, and he went out on the field with the colours of the Afghan flag painted on his face at the same time as the Taliban was ripping it down and replacing it with their own. It was a silent but very public protest. He tweeted at the time, quote, "Dear world leaders, my country is in chaos. Thousands of innocent people, including children and women, get martyred every day, houses and properties being destructed, thousands of families displaced. Don't leave us in chaos. Stop killing Afghans and destroying Afghanistan. We want peace." Now, in a country ruled by the Taliban, where you are a public figure, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up and say these things. So I don't think you can argue that the Afghanistan cricket team is in any way reflective of the Taliban, particularly when its star players have explicitly admonished their actions. Now, Rashid is also the face of the Adelaide Strikers in the Big Bash, and he's basically the unofficial face of the whole competition. He's hugely popular with fans and is brought out to promote the game as a whole. As entertainment at the Adelaide Test this year, Rashid bowled to West Indian great Brian Lara in the nets and then walked around the ground signing things for the kids. He's as big a deal in Australia as he is in Afghanistan. Now, Cricket Australia knows this. That's why they use him for that kind of promotional thing. They're quite happy to have Afghani cricket stars here pumping up the game when they think it might score them a few political points. But when they think they can score a few political points, they're happy to throw them under the bus and link them to the Taliban. It's the same reason, as I said before, that we didn't refuse to host or play against them in the T20 World Cup on home soil. This isn't a principled decision, it's a political one. Now, Rashid himself pointed out this hypocrisy. He tweeted last night, "If playing against Afghanistan is so uncomfortable for Australia, then I wouldn't want to make anyone uncomfortable with my presence in the BBL." He also said that cricket was, quote, "the only hope for the country." Afghanistan's rise into world cricket has been one of its great recent successes. It's something that can allow the people of Afghanistan, not the Taliban, to connect with the rest of the world, particularly the Western world, where we take the rights of women far more seriously. The boycott of South Africa was a different kettle of fish. It was a group of former British colonies that wanted and needed to participate in the Western world. The West took a stance on what it required of South Africa in order to participate, and sport was one vehicle to do that. The Taliban, however, is an unrecognised government. There's no serious relationship with Afghanistan, no serious foreign policy, and for as long as the Taliban remains in charge, there never will be. It's not a regime that can be pressured or negotiated with. It is a terrorist organisation, and about 40 million people, unfortunately, have to live under it. For God's sake, let's give them some hope. Let's do everything we can to promote the voices of people like Rashid Khan, not sideline them because their country was captured by terrorists.